At my son's wedding in Las Vegas, I handed him my old bankbook, the quiet proof of a lifetime of planning. He laughed, called me a loser, and threw it in the trash. I smiled and walked away. What he didn't know was how brutally expensive that moment of arrogance would become. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Ralph Stewart. I'm 68 years old, living in Phoenix, Arizona. Spent 35 years as an insurance agent with State Farm before I retired. I specialized in life insurance and investment products. Always believed that patience and careful planning were the keys to success. Turned out I was right about the planning part, at least. I mention this because you need to understand who my son Jason used to be before you can understand what he became. Jason is 34 now. When he was young, he'd wait by the window for me to come home from work. The moment my car pulled into the driveway, he'd run outside, arms wide open. "Dad! Dad! Tell me about your day!" he'd shout, genuinely interested in the mundane details of insurance policies and client meetings. That boy is gone. The change started 3 years ago when Jason met Ashley Webster. She's an Instagram influencer, or that's what she calls herself. From what I can tell, it means she takes pictures of herself in expensive places and calls it work. Beautiful woman, I'll give her that. But there's something cold behind those perfectly made-up eyes. Something calculating. Within 6 months of dating her, Jason started making comments. Little things at first. "Dad, your house is kind of small, isn't it?" Or, "I was telling my friends about your career, but honestly, insurance sounds pretty boring." The word stung, but I told myself it was just youth talking. Just a phase. A year ago, he refused to come for Thanksgiving. "Dad, we're going to Ashley's parents' place. They have this incredible estate in Scottsdale. You understand, right? Your place is just, well, it's not really set up for entertaining." I understood, all right. Ashley's parents, Roderick and Patricia Webster, own a chain of car dealerships across Arizona. They're the kind of wealthy that's loud about it. Roderick wears his success like a billboard. Patricia judges everyone who makes less than she does, which is just about everybody. The wedding was their show from start to finish. They insisted on the Bellagio in Las Vegas. The whole affair probably cost more than most people's houses. 200 guests, crystal chandeliers, a 7-tier cake, live orchestra. I arrived the day before, stayed in a modest room I'd booked myself, and watched my son transform into someone I didn't recognize. The ceremony was beautiful, I suppose, if you like that sort of thing. Jason stood at the altar in a custom Italian suit that Ashley had picked out. When Ashley walked down the aisle, the room gasped. She looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. My son's eyes shone with something I couldn't quite identify. Pride? Possession? I wasn't sure anymore. The reception was held in one of the Bellagio's grand ballrooms. Ice sculptures, champagne fountains, waiters circulating with food I couldn't pronounce. I sat at a table near the back, watching Jason and Ashley hold court like celebrities. Roderick was loud, slapping backs and laughing at his own jokes. Patricia held her champagne glass like a scepter, surveying her domain. When it came time for gifts, I waited, watched as Jason and Ashley opened envelope after envelope of checks and gift cards. Ashley squealed appropriately at each one, though I noticed she barely glanced at amounts under $500. Finally, Jason called out, "Dad, come on up." I walked to their table, aware of every eye in the room on me. My suit was 10 years old, but clean and pressed. I'd worn my best tie. In my hands, I held a simple cream-colored envelope. Jason took it with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ashley leaned in close as he opened it. Inside was my old Wells Fargo passbook, the physical kind with the marbled blue and green cover that banks stopped using years ago. The pages were yellowed with age. Jason held it up, confusion crossing his face, then recognition, then something else, something that made my stomach turn. "Dad? Seriously?" His voice carried across the room. A few guests turned to look. "A museum piece?" Ashley laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. "Oh my gosh, Jason, is that one of those old bank books? My grandmother had one of those." Roderick's voice boomed from the next table. "Ralph, you could have at least written a check instead of this garbage." The room's attention was fully on us now. Jason looked around, seemed to feed off the crowd's energy. He stood up. holding the passbook between two fingers like it was contaminated. "You know what, Dad?" His voice was loud now, performance mode. "I'm tired of pretending, tired of making excuses for you. This," he held up the passbook, "this is exactly what you are. Outdated, irrelevant, a relic." He walked to the decorative fountain in the corner of the room, the one with the ice sculpture of intertwined wedding rings. With a theatrical flourish, he dropped the passbook into the trash bin next to it. "Garbage from a failure belongs in the trash." The room erupted in laughter. Not all of it, but enough. Ashley clapped her hands together, delighted. Roderick raised his glass in approval. Patricia smiled behind her champagne flute. I stood there, frozen as the laughter washed over me. Something inside my chest pulled tight, and then snapped. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. A quiet, final breaking. I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the stranger he'd become. I walked to him slowly. The room quieted, perhaps expecting a scene. Instead, I placed my hand briefly on his shoulder. He flinched slightly, unsure. "Interesting, Jason," I said quietly. Only he could hear me. "Very interesting." I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, the party resumed. Music swelled. Conversation picked up. It was as if I'd never been there at all. As I reached the ballroom doors, I heard Ashley's voice carry across the marble floor. "Finally, the old ruin understands his place." I kept walking. The taxi to McCarran Airport smelled like artificial pine and old cigarettes. The driver tried to make small talk about the Vegas shows, but I wasn't listening. I stared out the window at the neon lights bleeding into the dark desert sky, and I let myself remember. Jason, at 7 years old, bringing me his report card. Straight A's. The pride on his face when I put it on the refrigerator. "I worked really hard, Dad. I wanted to make you proud." "I'm always proud of you, buddy." Had I said that enough? Had he forgotten? Jason at 16, after his first heartbreak. Sitting on the back porch, trying not to cry. I'd brought him a soda and sat beside him in silence until he was ready to talk. When he finally did, the words came in a flood. I'd listened to everyone, then told him that the pain would pass, that he'd love again, that being able to feel deeply was a strength, not a weakness. He'd hugged me then, tight. "Thanks, Dad. You always know what to say." When did I stop knowing what to say? Jason at 23, graduating from Arizona State. I'd worked overtime for months to help pay off his student loans. $47,000. I'd never told him about the sacrifice, never mentioned the extra shifts or the skipped vacations. I'd just handed him the paid-off loan statement on his graduation day. He'd cried, actually cried. "Dad, I can't believe you did this. I'll pay you back, I swear." "You don't owe me anything, son. That's what fathers do." Did he remember that moment, or had Ashley erased it like chalk from a board? The plane to Phoenix departed just after midnight. I'd upgraded to first class, something I rarely did, and the flight attendant brought me a whiskey without asking. I must have looked like I needed it. Somewhere over the Nevada-Arizona border, I pulled out the duplicate passbook from my jacket pocket. I'd made a copy the day before the wedding. Old habits from 35 years in insurance. Always have a backup. I opened it to the last page. There, in the neat handwriting of a Wells Fargo teller, was the balance as of February 2025. $5,856. Every commission carefully invested. Every dividend reinvested. Every raise saved. 4 decades of compound interest and strategic planning. The kind of wealth that builds slowly, invisibly, while everyone assumes you have nothing. I'd planned to give it all to Jason, every penny. I'd even drafted the paperwork with my attorney the year before. Jason was supposed to get the house, the investment accounts, everything. I'd imagined him using it wisely, maybe starting his own business, building something meaningful. That plan died in the Bellagio ballroom. Garbage from a failure belongs in the trash. I sipped my whiskey and watched Phoenix's lights appear in the distance. The city spread out below like a circuit board, glowing and interconnected. Somewhere down there was my house on Desert Willow Drive. My office. My life. My old life. I thought about Jason's face when he'd thrown the passbook away, the casual cruelty, the performance of it. He hadn't just rejected my gift. He'd rejected me. Everything I was. Everything I'd done for him. And Ashley, her laugh, her voice carrying across the marble. The old ruin understands his place? Did I, though? Did I understand my place? The plane landed at Sky Harbor just after 2 in the morning. I caught a cab home. The house felt different when I walked in, smaller somehow. Or maybe I felt smaller in it. I made coffee, even though I knew I wouldn't sleep. Sat at my kitchen table with my duplicate passbook open in front of me. The numbers stared back at me, steady and patient. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't throw things in the trash. Numbers don't laugh at you in front of 200 people. An idea began forming. Quiet at first, just a whisper, then louder. Jason thought I was a failure. Ashley thought I was a ruin. Roderick and Patricia thought I was beneath them. They all believed I had nothing, that I was nothing. What if I let them keep believing that? What if I made it true? The next morning, I called Gerald Coleman. He'd been my attorney for 20 years, handled my estate planning, helped me structure my investments. Good man, discreet. Gerald, I need to see you, soon as possible. Everything all right, Ralph? I need to make some changes, big ones. We scheduled for the following Monday. I spent the weekend thinking, planning. My training in risk assessment and strategic planning kicked in. Insurance work teaches you to see all the angles, to anticipate problems before they happen, to build safety nets. This time I was building something different. Jason called twice over the weekend. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. Hey, Dad, great wedding, right? Call me back. The second one was more insistent. Dad, seriously, call me. We need to talk about something. I deleted both messages. On Sunday evening, I stood in my living room and looked at the photographs on the mantel. Jason as a baby. Jason at his high school graduation. Jason and me at a Diamondbacks game. Both of us grinning, his arm around my shoulders. I picked up the most recent photo. Jason and Ashley's engagement picture. Professional photography. Perfectly lit. They looked like models. Jason's smile was broad, but somehow empty. Ashley's hand rested possessively on his chest, her ring catching the light. I turned the frame face down. If you think I'm a failure, I said to the empty room, then let's see how you handle the truth of that. My reflection in the darkened window showed a man I was just beginning to recognize. Someone who'd been patient for 68 years. Someone who'd always put family first. Someone who'd been taken for granted one time too many. The old Ralph would have forgiven by morning, would have called Jason back, smoothed things over, made excuses. But the old Ralph died in Las Vegas. The man who remained had nothing left to lose, and a fortune no one knew about, and he was done being garbage. The morning after my decision, I sat in my kitchen with coffee and a legal pad. The sun was just coming up over the McDowell Mountains, painting my neighborhood in shades of orange and pink. It was the kind of morning that used to make me grateful. Now it just felt like the start of something inevitable. Gerald Coleman's office was downtown, 15th floor of a glass building on Central Avenue. I'd worked with him for 20 years on estate planning, investment structures, the boring details of a careful life. He was good at his job, discreet, professional. I arrived exactly on time. Gerald met me in his corner office, all dark wood and law books, with a view of the valley that probably cost him extra. Ralph, he shook my hand firmly, good to see you. Your message sounded urgent. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk. I need to restructure everything, Gerald. All of it. He opened his laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. All right. What are we looking at? I told him. Not the emotional parts, not the wedding humiliation, just the facts. My son had made it clear he viewed me as worthless. I wanted to ensure my assets went where they'd actually do some good. I wanted Jason to inherit exactly what he thought I was worth. Nothing. Gerald didn't blink. He'd probably seen worse family situations. Irrevocable living trust would be the cleanest approach. You maintain control during your lifetime. Assets transfer to designated beneficiaries upon death without going through probate. I want the primary beneficiary to be a charitable organization, one that helps elderly people who've been financially abused by family members. I watched his face. And I want Jason listed as a residual beneficiary. $10,000. Gerald wrote notes, his expression neutral. That's very specific. It's intentional. Understood. He looked up. You're also going to want to revoke any existing power of attorney arrangements. I see here that Jason currently has medical and financial decision-making authority if you're incapacitated. I'd forgotten about that, had signed those papers 5 years ago, thinking I was being responsible, thinking my son would protect my interests if something happened. Change it, I said. Designate an independent fiduciary. Done. More typing. We'll also need to transfer your investment accounts, real estate, everything into the trust. I'll coordinate with your financial advisor, and we'll need a notary for some of the property documents. The meeting lasted 2 hours. We scheduled follow-up appointments. By the time I left, the sun was high and harsh, turning Phoenix into a furnace. I drove home with the windows down, letting the heat blast me awake. That evening, my phone rang. Jason's name lit up the screen. I stared at it through 3 rings. 4. Let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the notification appeared. I played the message on speaker. "Hey, Dad, great wedding, right?" His voice was bright, casual, like nothing had happened. "Listen, I've been meaning to call. Ashley and I are looking at houses, and we're thinking, well, with a baby on the way, we really need to get into something with a yard, you know? Good schools. The whole thing." A pause. Background noise. Ashley's laugh. "So we were hoping maybe you could help us out with the down payment. We need about $80,000. I know it's a lot, but it's family, right? And this is your grandkid we're talking about. Call me back." I deleted the message. Over the next few days, Jason called 6 more times. I ignored each one. Let him wonder. Let him wait. The following week, Gerald and I met again, this time at a notary's office, along with Brian Fisher, my financial consultant. Brian was 48, methodical, the kind of person who read fund prospectuses for fun. "We're transferring 3 accounts," Brian explained, sliding papers across the table. "The stock portfolio, the bond fund, and the index funds. Total value approximately $2.7 million. The notary, Linda Price, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, witnessed each signature, the scratch of pens on paper, the official stamps, each document another nail in Jason's expectations. "The transfer on death deed for your house will take a few more days," Linda said. "But once it's filed, the property will transfer directly to your designated beneficiary, without probate. Not to Jason, to the charity." I signed my name one more time. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. I waited until I was parked in my garage before listening. Jason's voice was different this time. Frustrated. "Dad, seriously, what's going on? It's been a week. Ashley's pregnant. We need to make decisions here. We're your family. You can't just ignore us. Call me back. Tonight." I saved the message this time. Evidence of his entitlement, his assumption that I owed him anything. The next evening, I finally answered his call. "Dad, finally!" Jason sounded relieved. "Listen, about the house. Jason, I'm a retiree on a fixed income. My pension is $2,850 a month. I don't have $80,000 to give you." Silence. Then, "What? But you worked for 35 years. You have to have savings, retirement funds, something." "Those savings paid for your education at Arizona State University. Remember? $47,000 in student loans that I cleared for you." More silence. I could almost hear him processing, recalculating. Yeah, but that was years ago. You've been working since then." "As I said, $2,850 a month. That's what I have." "Dad, this is ridiculous. We're trying to buy a house for your grandchild. Then I suggest you save for it, like everyone else." I kept my voice level, calm. "As you said at your wedding, I'm a failure. Failures don't have money to spare. Good luck with the house, Jason." I hung up before he could respond. 2 hours later, my phone pinged with a text message from Ashley. "Ralph, you selfish old man. We're raising your grandson, and you refuse to help us? We'll remember this." I read it twice, then set my phone face down on the counter, poured myself a bourbon, sat on my back patio, and watched the sun set over the city. In the distance, helicopter lights blinked against the darkening sky. Traffic hummed on the freeway. The world kept turning, indifferent to small family dramas. My phone pinged again. Another message from Ashley. Jason's father-in-law offered to help us. At least someone understands family responsibility. I smiled into my bourbon. Let her think that. Let them all think I was the problem, the obstacle, the selfish old man. They had no idea what was really happening. No idea that while they were planning their perfect life in their perfect house, with their perfect lies, I was systematically removing them from mine. The trust was established, the assets transferred, the power of attorney revoked. Every legal structure that had once made Jason my heir was now redirected, and they didn't suspect a thing. The calls continued. Over the next week, Jason left 6 more voicemails, each one progressively more irritated. Dad, this is getting silly. Dad, just pick up. Dad, we need to talk about this like adults. I deleted them all without responding. 9 days after the wedding, I met with Brian Fisher again, this time at his office in Scottsdale, a modest suite in a building that specialized in financial planning. The accounts are fully transferred, Brian confirmed, pulling up spreadsheets on his computer. Everything's now held in the Ralph Stewart Family Trust. Your son is listed as you specified. Residual beneficiary, $10,000 upon your death. And if he challenges it, the trust is solid. You're of sound mind. You executed everything properly with witnesses and notaries. He'd have a very difficult time proving undue influence or incapacity. Brian leaned back in his chair. To be honest, Ralph, I've seen a lot of family situations in this business. This is one of the more decisive restructurings I've witnessed. My son made his position clear, I said. I'm just respecting his assessment. Brian nodded slowly. The house deed should be finalized by next week. Then everything will be locked in. I left his office feeling lighter somehow, each piece of the puzzle falling into place. Each legal document another layer of protection against Jason's inevitable discovery. Because he would discover it, eventually, and that moment, that specific moment when he realized what he'd lost, would be everything. The following Monday, Linda Price called me. Mr. Stewart, the transfer on death deed is ready for your signature. Can you come by this afternoon? I arrived at 3. The office smelled like old paper and industrial carpet cleaner. Linda had all the documents laid out, color-coded tabs marking where I needed to sign. This deed designates the beneficiary of your property at 3847 Desert Willow. Drive upon your death, she explained. The current beneficiary you've listed is the Senior Financial Protection Foundation. The property will transfer directly to them, bypassing probate entirely. I read through the legalese, found the clause about Jason. It was there in black and white. Jason Michael Stewart is expressly excluded from any claim to this property. And this is legally binding? I asked. Absolutely. Arizona allows property owners complete discretion in naming beneficiaries. As long as you're competent and acting of your own free will, which you clearly are, no one can challenge this. I signed my name in 4 places. Linda notarized each signature, her stamp making that satisfying thunk on the paper. All filed, she said, sliding a copy into a folder for me. Your estate is now structured exactly as you specified. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through neighborhoods I'd lived in for decades, past the park where I'd taught Jason to ride a bike, past the school where he'd attended kindergarten, past the ice cream shop where we'd celebrated his good report cards. All those memories felt distant now, like they belonged to different people. At home, I made dinner. Grilled chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, the same meal I'd made 1,000 times. But tonight, it tasted different, cleaner somehow. My phone rang while I was washing dishes. Jason, again. I considered ignoring it, then changed my mind. Answered. Finally! Jason's voice exploded through the speaker. Dad, what is your problem? It's been 2 weeks. I told you my situation, Jason. I don't have money to give you. That's impossible. You worked your entire adult life. You have to have something saved. A retirement account, investments, something. I have my pension, $2,850 a month. No. His voice went hard. I don't believe you. There's no way you're that broke. Where did all your money go? I dried my hands on a dish towel, taking my time. You want an itemized list? Yes. Your education, $47,000. Your car when you graduated, $12,000. The furniture for your first apartment, $6,000. The security deposit when you lost your job that time, $3,000. Should I continue? Silence. I spent my money on you, Jason, on building the life you now have. And at your wedding, you threw my gift in the trash and called me a failure. So no, I don't have $80,000 lying around. I don't have anything lying around because I gave it all to you already. Dad, that's not. He struggled for words. That was different. That was helping me start my life. And now you're started. You have a job, a wife, a life. You don't need me anymore. You made that very clear. That's not what I meant at the wedding. It was just the champagne, the moment. Interesting sense of humor you have. I kept my voice flat, emotionless. Give Ashley and the baby my regards. I hung up. For a long moment, I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand. Then I walked to my living room and looked at the photographs again. Jason as a child, full of love and trust. Jason as a teenager, still believing in his father. Jason as a young man, just beginning to change. I turned them all face down, one by one. That's when I understood exactly how to repay them. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with silence, with absence, with the cold, hard truth of consequences. They wanted to treat me like garbage? Fine. Garbage disappears quietly, leaving nothing behind. And that's exactly what I would become to them. A void where their inheritance used to be, discovered only after it was far too late to repair the damage they'd done. The next 2 weeks brought silence. No calls from Jason, no texts from Ashley. I went about my days with an odd sense of peace, grocery shopping, working in my small garden, taking evening walks around the neighborhood. Spring in Phoenix meant warmth without the brutal summer heat. The jacaranda trees were blooming purple along my street. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the window, I saw Jason's car in my driveway. When I opened the door, both he and Ashley stood on my porch. Ashley had one hand pressed against her stomach, the other gripping Jason's arm. Her face looked pale, strained. Dad. Jason's voice was different, softer, almost pleading. Can we come in, please? I stepped aside. They entered, Ashley moving slowly, dramatically. She lowered herself onto my couch like every movement caused discomfort. Are you all right? I asked, though I suspected theater when I saw it. Morning sickness, Ashley said weakly. It's been terrible. The doctor says it's one of the worst cases of toxemia he's seen. Toxemia, the medical term designed to sound serious. I nodded, said nothing. Jason sat beside her, his hand on her knee. Dad, I owe you an apology, a real one. What I said at the wedding, it was inexcusable. I was showing off, trying to be funny for the crowd. But it was cruel. I'm sorry. I see. Ashley's pregnant, as you know. We've been looking at houses, but everything in a decent school district costs so much. We really need your help, Dad. Not just for us. For your grandchild. I looked at Ashley, noting how her hand remained protectively over her abdomen, how her eyes watched me, calculating. I'd seen that look before on clients trying to manipulate a claim. Jason, I told you my situation. I live on $2,850 a month. But you must have something saved. His voice cracked slightly. 35 years at State Farm. There has to be a pension fund, a 401k, something. Those savings went to your education. $47,000 in student loans that I paid off. Remember? Ashley's expression shifted. The vulnerability dropped for just a moment, replaced by something harder. That's typical manipulation, throwing the past in someone's face. I'm stating facts, not manipulating. Ralph, you're being toxic. She straightened slightly, the illness apparently forgotten in her anger. We're trying to build a life, raise a family, and you're hoarding whatever you have like some bitter old man. I stood up. I think it's time for you to leave. Jason rose too, his face flushed. Dad, please. I don't have $80,000. I don't have $40,000. I don't have anything beyond my pension. If that makes me inadequate in your eyes, so be it. You already decided that at your wedding. They left. Ashley slammed my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. I returned to my chair and picked up my book, but I couldn't focus on the words. 6 days later, another knock. This time, Roderick and Patricia Webster stood on my porch. Roderick wore expensive casual clothes, the kind that cost $300, but were designed to look effortless. Patricia had her arms crossed, her face already arranged in judgment. Ralph? Roderick extended his hand. I shook it briefly. Mind if we come in, just for a minute? I let them in because I was curious what new approach they'd try. Roderick settled into my armchair without asking, claiming the space. Patricia remained standing, inspecting my living room like an appraiser at an estate sale. Look, Ralph, let's be adults here. Roderick leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My daughter is carrying your grandchild. Jason is family now. I'm willing to put up $40,000 for their down payment, if you match it. Fair deal, don't you think? I appreciate the offer, but I can't afford it. Can't or won't? Both. Patricia made a small, disgusted sound. You know what, Ralph? You've always been a burden to this family. Thank goodness Jason has us. A burden, I repeated. Interesting choice of words. Patricia, honey. Roderick raised a hand. No. She turned to face me fully. Someone needs to say it. You're selfish. You're petty. And you're punishing your son because he hurt your feelings at his wedding. Grow up? I stood. I think we're done here. Roderick stood too, his congeniality evaporating. You'll regret this, Ralph. Family doesn't forget. After they left, I checked my email. There it was, a message from Jason. The subject line read, Legal notice. I opened it. The text was formal, threatening. He demanded I officially declare all assets and financial holdings or face legal action for elder exploitation and financial manipulation. I forwarded it to Gerald Coleman with a brief note. They're escalating. His response came within an hour. Let them try. Everything you've done is airtight. Get some rest. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Not from worry, from anticipation. They were getting desperate, which meant they were getting close to discovering the truth. And when they did, when Jason finally understood what he'd thrown away, that would be worth every sleepless night. The letter arrived near the end of the month. Official letterhead from some cut-rate law firm in Tempe. I recognized the type immediately, the kind that advertised on bus benches and took cases on contingency. The language was aggressive, demands for financial transparency, suggestions that I was being manipulated by outside parties, implications that my mental capacity was diminished, and that my decisions were not of sound mind. I read it twice, then called Gerald. They hired a lawyer, I said. Forward it to me. He paused. Ralph, this is pure intimidation. They have no grounds for any of this. I know, but what do we do? We respond, officially, on record. Let me handle it. 2 days later, Gerald sent a formal response on his firm's letterhead. The language was precise, legal, and utterly dismissive. Mr. Stewart is of completely sound mind. All financial decisions have been made independently and voluntarily. He has absolute legal right to dispose of his property as he sees fit. Any further harassment will be met with appropriate legal action. I kept a copy in my desk drawer. The following week, Jason appeared at my door again, this time alone. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled. He looked like he'd come straight from work without thinking it through. Dad, I know you're hiding something. He pushed past me into the house before I could stop him. You have money. I know you do. You worked your entire life. Where is it? Jason, lower your voice. No! He spun to face me. I'm tired of your games. You owe me the truth. I'm your son. Do I? I kept my voice level. At your wedding, did you remember I was your father when you threw my gift in the trash? He froze. The passbook, I continued. You called it garbage. Called me a failure. You remember that, Jason? His face went through several expressions. Confusion, realization, defensiveness. It was just a joke, Dad. The champagne? No, it wasn't a joke. It was your real face, the one you've been hiding behind Ashley's influence for 3 years, and I saw it clearly for the first time. You're punishing me for one stupid moment? I'm accepting your assessment. You called me a failure, so I'm living like one. Isn't that what you wanted? His jaw clenched. You'll regret this. You'll regret treating your own son this way. He left. The door didn't slam this time, just clicked shut with finality. 3 days after that, my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Someone had tagged me in Ashley's story. I didn't have an account, but curiosity made me check on my computer. The post was carefully worded. No names, but the implications were clear. When a toxic family member refuses to help during your most vulnerable time, some people never grow up. Family matters, pregnancy struggles, and toxic relatives. The comments were mixed, some supportive, others questioning. I closed the browser. That Friday evening, my phone rang. The Wells Fargo number. Mr. Stewart, this is Marcus Chen, branch manager. I wanted to inform you of something unusual. Earlier today, someone called claiming to be your son, requesting information about your accounts. My pulse quickened. What did they tell him? Nothing. We never give out information to anyone but the account holder. But he was persistent, claimed he had power of attorney. He doesn't. We know. We checked. But I thought you should be aware. He seemed quite desperate. Thank you for calling, Marcus. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen as darkness fell outside. Jason had tried to access my bank information. Desperation had pushed him to impersonate me, to violate my privacy, to search for what he believed I was hiding. He was so close to the truth now, circling it like a shark sensing blood in the water. I poured myself a drink and watched the city lights come on across the valley. The McDowell Mountains were dark silhouettes against the purple sky. My phone sat on the counter, silent now. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way. Jason would keep pushing, keep searching, keep demanding, and eventually he would find what he was looking for. The security camera I'd installed in my garage after turning down the photo of him, that camera had night vision and motion detection. I'd checked it religiously since installing it, just waiting, watching. Because insurance work teaches you one critical lesson. People reveal their true nature when they think no one is watching. And Jason, desperate and entitled, would eventually make that mistake. It was only a matter of time. The next morning, I drove to South Mountain Park for my usual hike. The desert trails were empty at this hour, just me and the lizards warming themselves on sun-baked rocks. I'd taken this same route every week for the past 5 years. The predictability was comforting. My phone was tucked in my pocket, but I'd enabled the security camera app before leaving. The motion detection alert came through around 11. I pulled out my phone on the trail and watched the footage in real time. Jason's car in my driveway, him getting out, looking around nervously, pulling a key from his pocket. The spare I'd given him 3 years ago, never thinking to ask for it back. He disappeared into my house. The interior cameras picked him up in my office, then my bedroom, rifling through drawers with increasing desperation. Then he moved to the garage. I watched him find the cardboard box on the metal shelving unit, the one I'd deliberately left accessible. Inside were old financial documents, tax returns, investment statements, and tucked between them the duplicate passbook. Even through the grainy camera footage, I could see his hands shaking as he opened it, could see him freeze when he reached the last page, the page where I'd written in clear handwriting, current balance, 2,134,856, transferred to RLS Family Trust, per instructions dated March 27, 2025. He pulled out his phone, took photos. His mouth was moving, calling someone. Ashley, probably. I couldn't hear the words, but I could imagine them. He put everything back, not quite as carefully as he'd found it, rushed out of my garage into his car and drove away fast enough to leave rubber marks on my driveway. I sat down on a boulder and replayed the footage twice more. There was something deeply satisfying about watching him discover the truth, about seeing the exact moment he realized what he'd thrown away. That evening, my phone rang, Jason's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hi, Dad. How are you?" His voice was too bright, too casual, fake. "I'm well. Listen, I've been thinking about the wedding, about everything I said. I was completely out of line. I want to apologize. Really apologize. Maybe we could have dinner? Talk things through? Jason, is there something you want to tell me?" A pause. "What do you mean?" "Something you want to say, about today, perhaps." Another pause, longer this time. I'm not sure what you mean." "Interesting." I let the word hang there. "You know what else is interesting? I have cameras in my garage now. Motion activated. High definition." The silence on the other end was absolute. "You were at my house today," I continued, "while I was hiking. You used your spare key to enter my home without permission. You searched through my private documents. Found something unexpected, didn't you?" "Dad, I can explain." "No need. I saw everything. The question is, what are you going to do with that information?" I needed to understand. You needed to confirm I was hiding money from you. And now you know I wasn't lying about having something. I just wasn't lying in the way you expected." His voice changed, dropping the pretense. "You have almost $3 million, and you told me you lived on $2,800 a month. You lied to my face. I told you my pension was $2,850 a month. That's true. I never said I had nothing else. You made assumptions based on what you wanted to believe. The trust, you created it after the wedding. Correct. After you threw my gift in the trash and called me a failure. So this is revenge. You're cutting me out to punish me. I'm giving you exactly what you said I was worth. You were quite clear about my value, Jason. I'm just respecting your assessment. You can't do this." "Actually, I can. I have. And it's completely legal." "We'll see about that." He hung up. I sat in my dark living room, phone in my hand. The city lights stretched out below, a carpet of gold and white. Somewhere out there, Jason was calling that cheap lawyer, demanding answers, making plans. Let him try. The trust was airtight. Gerald had made sure of that. Every document witnessed, notarized, legally sound. I was of completely sound mind. I had recent medical evaluations to prove it. No one had manipulated me. No one had exercised undue influence. I'd simply decided, after careful consideration and profound disappointment, that my son would inherit $10,000 instead of millions. It was the most expensive lesson Jason would ever learn, and unlike his college education, this one I wouldn't pay for. The legal papers arrived within days. Jason's attorney, some graduate from a third-tier law school who specialized in personal injury cases, had filed a petition to invalidate the trust. The grounds were laughably weak. Undue influence and diminished capacity. They claimed someone had manipulated me, that I wasn't thinking clearly, that the trust had been created under suspicious circumstances. I forwarded everything to Gerald Coleman. His response came that same afternoon. "This is desperation, Ralph. They're grasping at straws. We'll destroy this in court." The hearing was scheduled for mid-month. I arrived at the courthouse in downtown Phoenix wearing my best suit, the one I'd bought for Jason's college graduation. Gerald met me at the entrance, briefcase in hand, looking calm and professional. "Remember, just answer the questions honestly. Don't elaborate. Don't get emotional." "I won't." Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I expected. Jason sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney, a nervous-looking man who kept adjusting his tie. Ashley sat behind them, dressed conservatively for once, playing the concerned daughter-in-law. The judge, a woman in her late 50s with steel-gray hair, reviewed the documents with sharp eyes. Jason's attorney went first. "Your Honor, we believe Mr. Stewart was not in his right mind when creating this trust. He'd just experienced a stressful family event." "The wedding where his son threw his gift in the trash?" The judge's voice was dry. "Well, yes, but seems like he was perfectly rational to me. Continue." The attorney stumbled through his arguments, suggested I'd been manipulated, couldn't name who had done the manipulating, implied I was too old to make sound financial decisions. Gerald stood when his turn came, calm, measured, devastating. "Your Honor, I present medical evaluations from Mr. Stewart's physician, dated 2 weeks before the trust creation and again 1 week after. Both show perfect cognitive function. Here are statements from his bank manager at Wells Fargo, attesting to his clarity and decisiveness in all financial matters. Here are security camera recordings from my office showing Mr. Stewart during our consultations, alert, engaged, asking detailed questions about trust structures and Arizona estate law." He laid out document after document, each one another nail in Jason's case. "Mr. Stewart," the judge said, looking at me directly, "can you explain in your own words why you created this trust?" I stood. My son made it clear at his wedding that he considered me worthless. He threw away a gift I'd carefully prepared, called it garbage, called me a failure. He did this publicly in front of 200 guests. After that, I decided he should inherit exactly what he believes I'm worth, a token amount. The rest will go to charity, helping elderly people who've been financially exploited by family members, which seemed appropriate. The judge's expression didn't change, but I caught the slightest nod. "The petition is denied," she said. "Mr. Stewart has absolute right to dispose of his property as he sees fit. This trust was created legally, properly witnessed and notarized, by a man of sound mind making a conscious decision about his estate." Dismissed. The gavel came down. Jason's face went white. Not pale, actually white, like someone had drained the blood from his skin. His mouth opened, closed, opened again without sound. Ashley grabbed his arm, hissing something I couldn't hear. In the hallway afterward, Gerald shook my hand. That went exactly as expected. They had nothing. What happens now? They could appeal, but they won't win. The law is clear. You're competent, the trust is valid, and you have every right to distribute your assets however you choose. I walked to my car alone. The desert sun was brutal, turning the parking lot into a griddle. But I felt cold, clear, focused. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from an unknown number with a screenshot attached. Ashley's Instagram post, dated that morning. When your father-in-law has millions, but refuses to help his pregnant daughter-in-law buy a house for his grandchild. Some people never learned what family means. Toxic family, elderly abuse, pregnancy struggles, 47,000 followers. Hundreds of comments already. I got in my car and drove home, my hands steady on the wheel. Let her post. Let her rage. The truth would come out eventually. It always did. And when her followers discovered she'd lied about being pregnant, when they learned she'd tried to manipulate a man who'd offered nothing but love to his son, her carefully constructed influencer world would collapse. But that would come later. For now, I had something more important to do. The next evening, Roderick Webster showed up at my door. No Patricia this time. Just him, wearing expensive golf clothes and an expression somewhere between anger and desperation. "Ralph, we need to talk." I let him in because I wanted to hear what he'd say. "Look, let's be reasonable adults here." He settled into my armchair uninvited. "You proved your point. Jason was disrespectful. He apologized. But this trust thing, you're destroying your relationship with your son over pride." "Am I? Give him $500,000 now. Keep the rest. Everyone wins. The lawsuit goes away. Ashley stops posting. We all move forward like families should." "No." The single word seemed to confuse him. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not giving Jason $500,000. Or $50,000. Or $5,000 beyond the $10,000 he'll inherit when I die. He'll get exactly what the trust specifies." Roderick's face darkened. "You're doing this out of spite." "I'm doing this out of principle. Jason wanted to know what I was worth. I'm showing him. You'll regret this. You're destroying your family." "No, Roderick. Jason destroyed our family when he threw my gift in the trash and called me garbage in front of 200 people. I'm just accepting his judgment." He left without another word. 3 days later, Ashley posted again. This time a confession. "I need to be honest with my followers. I'm not actually pregnant. I claimed I was because I was desperate to reunite our family. It was wrong. I'm sorry." The comments exploded. Followers calling her manipulative, accusing her of elder abuse, demanding refunds for products she'd endorsed. By week's end, she'd lost 12,000 followers and 2 sponsorship deals. The mask was slipping, and everyone could see what was underneath. The fallout from Ashley's confession spread faster than I expected. Social media, I learned, had a long memory and zero tolerance for manipulation. Within days, several popular bloggers picked up the story. Not the version Ashley had tried to spin, the real version. Screenshots of her posts claiming pregnancy circulated alongside her confession. Comments sections filled with accusations. Financial abuse of the elderly, manipulative behavior, entitlement syndrome. One blogger with 300,000 followers dedicated an entire video to influencers who faked pregnancies for sympathy. Ashley's perfectly curated Instagram feed became Exhibit A. The numbers told the story. 47,000 followers became 35,000, then 32,000. Sponsorship deals vanished. The skincare company dropped her. The lifestyle brand that had paid her to post about their products issued a statement distancing themselves from individuals who engage in deceptive practices. I watched it happen from my quiet house in Phoenix, sipping coffee on my patio while the August heat turned the city into a griddle. Jason, meanwhile, faced his own reckoning. He'd always been careful about his public image, professional, polished, the kind of sales manager who posted motivational quotes on LinkedIn and attended every company mixer. But Ashley's social media campaign had made him visible in ways he'd never intended. His boss, a woman named Margaret Chen, who ran the Southwest Division, called him in for a meeting. Jason told me about it later, during one of our final conversations before everything changed. She showed me Ashley's posts, he said, his voice hollow. All of them. Asked if there was anything the company should know. If I was involved in elderly financial abuse. If there were legal issues that might affect my position. What did you tell her? The truth. That my father has millions and refuses to share it. That I'm trying to protect my inheritance. He laughed, bitter and broken. She looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in. Said maybe I should focus on earning my own money instead of counting my father's. The words must have stung. Jason had built his entire self-image on success, on being better than his upbringing, on surpassing me. And now his boss was suggesting he was nothing more than a greedy child, waiting for his parent to die. 3 weeks after the court hearing, he appeared at my door. I almost didn't recognize him. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. His hair needed cutting. His eyes were red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept in days. "Dad, can I come in?" I stepped aside. He sat on my couch, the same couch where he'd once done homework while I made dinner, where we'd watched football games and argued about plays, where we'd been father and son instead of enemies. "I messed up," he said. No preamble, no excuses. "I know that now. Ashley's leaving me. She already moved out, went back to her parents' house, said there's no point staying with someone who won't inherit anything." I said nothing, just waited. "Her parents won't talk to me either? Roderick told me I'm not welcome in their house anymore. I'm damaged goods," he said. "Poor investment." Jason's hand shook. "That's what they think of me. What she thinks. A bad investment. And what do you think?" "I think I'm exactly what you said. A man who sold his soul for the wrong reasons and lost everything that mattered." He looked up and I saw tears. Real ones, not the manipulative kind Ashley had taught him. "I called you a failure. Threw your gift in the trash. Let strangers laugh at you. And why? Because I wanted to impress people who never actually cared about me." "Jason, no, let me finish." He wiped his eyes roughly. "You paid for my education. $47,000. Never asked me to pay it back. Never held it over my head. You just did it. Because that's what fathers do, you said. And I repaid you by calling you worthless in front of 200 people. The silence stretched between us. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he continued. "I know that. I'm not here to beg for money or ask you to change the trust. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. What I lost wasn't an inheritance. It was you." I studied his face. This man who'd once been my little boy. The son who'd run to greet me after work. Who'd believed I could fix anything. Who'd loved me unconditionally before the world taught him to measure people by their bank accounts. "You're 34 years old, Jason, an adult. You made your choices." "I know. You chose Ashley over me. Her parents over our relationship. Money over love. I know. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices. I know." His voice broke. "And I deserve every bit of it." I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, handed him one, sat back down. "Here's what I'm going to tell you," I said. "I'm not cutting you off from my love. I never did. But I am cutting you off from money you thought was yours by right. There's a difference." "What difference?" "Love isn't conditional, but inheritance is. You have to earn trust, respect, the right to be someone's heir, and you didn't." He nodded slowly, accepting the verdict. "So what do I do now?" "You become the man I raised you to be. Not for the money, that ship has sailed. For yourself, because you need to look in the mirror and respect who you see." He left without asking for anything more. No pleas, no negotiations, just quiet acceptance. 2 weeks later, he called. Ashley had filed for divorce. The house hunt was canceled. He was moving into a studio apartment, had started seeing a therapist, was trying to rebuild his life from scratch. "Is there any chance," he asked, voice small, "that you might forgive me someday?" I looked at the photograph on my mantel, the one I'd turned face down months ago, the one showing a younger Jason, arms around my shoulders, both of us grinning. "Ask me again when you've earned it," I said, "not with words, with actions." "How long will that take?" "However long it takes." September arrived with cooler temperatures and clearer skies. The brutal Phoenix summer was ending, giving way to the brief paradise of fall. Jason called on a Tuesday morning. "Dad, would you meet me for coffee? Just coffee. Nothing else." I agreed, curiosity mostly, and something else, a small, stubborn hope I couldn't quite extinguish. The cafe in Tempe was small, locally owned, the kind of place that served actual espresso instead of candy disguised as coffee. Jason was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, nursing a black coffee. No laptop, no phone on the table. Just him, waiting. I sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I'm not here to ask for money," he finally said, "or to beg you to change the trust. I just wanted you to know something." "What's that?" "I understand now. Not about the money. I mean, I understand that too, but that's not the important part. I understand about respect, about value, about what I threw away when I threw away that passbook." He reached into his bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth, unfolded it carefully. The Wells Fargo passbook. Worn, stained, the blue and green cover faded with age. "I pulled it out of the trash that night," he said quietly, "after you left, after everyone stopped laughing. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me knew I'd made a terrible mistake. Maybe I couldn't leave it there. So I took it home, kept it in my desk drawer, looked at it sometimes when Ashley wasn't around." He slid it across the table. "I want you to have it back, not because it's worth anything. I know the account's been closed, transferred to the trust, but because I need you to know that I saved it. That even when I was being the worst version of myself, some tiny part of me remembered who you are, who we were." I picked up the passbook. The pages were yellowed, the binding loose. On the last page, my handwriting, the balance that had changed everything. "Keep it," I said, pushing it back toward him. "What?" "Keep it. As a reminder." "Of what?" "That true value isn't measured in account balances. It's measured in character, in how you treat people when you have power over them, in whether you choose love or money when you can't have both." His eyes filled with tears again. "I chose wrong." "You did, but you're learning. That's more than most people manage. Is there a chance—" He stopped, started again. "Is there any possibility that we could, I don't know, have coffee again sometime? Talk? I'm not asking for father-son relationship back. I know I destroyed that. But maybe, eventually, something." I looked at this broken man across from me, saw past the mistakes to the child he'd been, the good person he might still become. "We're having coffee now, aren't we?" "Yes, but that's a start. Let's see where it goes from there." Over the next weeks, we met regularly, once a week, then twice. Not as father and son trying to reclaim what was lost. That was gone, transformed into something different. But as two men learning to know each other again, he told me about therapy, about recognizing patterns Ashley had exploited, about understanding how he'd measured himself by all the wrong metrics. I told him about the charity, about meeting some of the elderly people who'd been financially abused by their families, about how his inheritance would help them recover, rebuild, reclaim their dignity. "That's better than me having it," he said one afternoon. "I would have just bought a bigger house, maybe a second car, stuff that doesn't matter." "Maybe. Or maybe you would have built something meaningful. We'll never know now. Do you regret it? The trust? No. Do you?" He thought for a long moment. "I regret what led to it, but not the trust itself. I think I needed this. Needed to lose everything to understand what actually mattered." The trust remained unchanged. $10,000 for Jason upon my death. The rest to charity. I'd made my decision, and I stood by it. But I gave him something more valuable. Time. Attention. The chance to rebuild trust slowly, carefully, without the weight of millions distorting every interaction. When Thanksgiving came, I invited him to dinner. He arrived carrying a pie. "I made it myself," he said, almost shy. "First time I've ever baked anything. Pumpkin. I know it's traditional, but I thought, well, I wanted to contribute something I actually made instead of bought." We ate together at my small dining table. Just the two of us. No Ashley. No Webster family with their judgments and their money. No lawyers or court cases or Instagram posts. Just a father and son sharing a meal. "I have something for you," Jason said after dinner. He pulled out the passbook again. "I want to give this back. For real this time." I told you to keep it. I know. But I realized something. It shouldn't be mine. It was always yours. Your life's work. Your careful planning. Your sacrifice. I don't want it as a reminder of what I lost. I want you to have it as a reminder of what you built. Not just the money. Everything. Your integrity. Your principles. Your refusal to compromise your values, even when it cost you your relationship with your son. I took the passbook, held it in my hands. All those years, all those careful investments, all those choices that had led to this moment. You know what the real value of this passbook was? I asked. The money? No, the lesson. That what you give freely out of love has value. That what you expect as entitlement becomes poison. That respect can't be bought, only earned. He nodded slowly. I'm learning that. Good. Keep learning it. As he left that evening, he paused at my door. Dad, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I watched him drive away into the desert night, his taillights disappearing into the darkness. The passbook sat on my mantel, back where it belonged. Not hidden away, not thrown in the trash, just there. A reminder of what had been lost and what, perhaps, might slowly be rebuilt. The trust remained unchanged. The money would go to charity. Jason would inherit his $10,000 and nothing more. But we would keep having coffee, keep talking, keep rebuilding something that looked different from what we'd had before, but might eventually be just as valuable. Not a father and son bound by expectation of inheritance, but two men bound by choice, by effort, by the slow work of earning back what had been thrown away. The passbook sat on the mantel, its pages filled with numbers that no longer mattered, because I had finally taught Jason the most important lesson of all, that real value isn't measured in account balances, but in who you are when no one's watching, in what you do when you have nothing to gain, in whether you choose to be a person of character or a person of convenience. He'd chosen wrong once, but he was learning to choose better, and that, I thought, was worth more than any amount of money I could have left him. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.